Hi guys, welcome to episode 6 of WP Bros Academy. I'm James Kusatari,
And I'm Phil Solar.
and in this episode, we're going to be building on top of what we did in episode 5, where we created a rich text component, and we're going to be adding some of our own settings to the inspector controls panel on the right hand side. So you're going to be learning how you add um, these color settings. So we've got text color and we've got background color. So that's what we're going to be doing. Over to you, Phil.
We're going to be exploring a bit more about destructuring. We're going to be sharing with you some arrow function stuff. We're going to be teaching you how you can hook into the use block props function that we went through last time to actually add these inline styles. So if you're up for it and you're excited, dive straight in. All of the links will be in the description below. And if you like the videos and the content that we're putting out at the moment, or you know anyone that's interested in Gutenberg block development, especially with the release of WordPress 5.9 recently, please share the videos, like and subscribe to our channel. We promise there's plenty more good content coming on its way, and we hope to see you in all of our future videos as well.
Cool. Well, let's go then. Let's do this.
Let's go.
Okay, then let's talk about the inspector controls, also known as the setting sidebar. Um, so if you was with us in the last episode, you would have seen that we created a very basic paragraph block with the rich text component. And in this episode, we're going to be adding some settings to this component so we can do some cool things like change the color of the text, or maybe even the background color of that text as well. So before we dive into all of that good stuff, we just wanted to talk about the setting sidebar over to the right hand side and just kind of familiarize ourselves with what's going on there, what parts we can customize, and just talk about that really. So first of all then, on our current block, you can see that we have the advanced, it's called the advanced inspector controls, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah.
But there's also just an inspector controls component, which would appear above this, but currently you can't see it on our block. And that's where we're going to be adding in our settings for this block. So if I just now bring you to the editor on the left and we create the native paragraph block with Gutenberg, you'll see that they've got some settings in the inspector controls panel. So you can see they've got like a color panel where they can add some colors. And there's also some text settings and some typography settings. So all of the stuff within that, excuse me, within that section is the inspector controls. Anything to add to that, Phil?
No, not really. Yeah, that sums it up pretty well, I think. So yeah, obviously you get access to that. If there were any advanced settings that you wanted to add, so if you open up the advanced settings, normally with these blocks out of the box, you get class names text field in the advanced panel at the bottom. And you also get HTML anchor. Those are the two fields that are there by default. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that specifically you would want to include in that, but if you did want to, you'd use the inspector advanced controls component, and that's where it would put it, down in the bottom right corner. Everything else, as James said, would go above it. Obviously at the top you've got the designated space which it gives you for the title and description, which is all being pulled through from your block.json file.
Cool. So I guess we should probably just jump over to the inspector controls component documentation, because there's some really useful information in here, isn't there?
Yeah, it's really good. It's one of the better components which are documented. Gives you some good code examples in terms of the usage. Gives you some GIF animations, I think, further down the page as well, which is quite handy just to see the panels opening. It might be the panel documentation, which we'll look at in a minute, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, you get some really comprehensive code examples as well. And then here, which I really like, they've included the advanced controls component documentation as well on the same page. So as we've touched on there, and it's even circled it, it will put it into the advanced panel, which is there out of the box by default anyway. So
Cool.
yeah,
So yeah,
really, really helpful documentation, worth checking out. Again, we'll put the link to all of these pages that we're going to look at in today's video in the description. So yeah, do feel free to go and check it out and look at some of the code snippets and obviously follow along with us as well.
definitely. Um, so where should we start next then? Shall we jump over to VS Code and familiarize ourselves with where we left off in episode 5?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay then. So over in VS Code then, in episode 5, we added a content attribute for our rich text component. So that's where it's storing any text that we write into that component. In our edit.js file, we imported the rich text component, and we set up our rich text component in our return function or return statement. And then we created an onChange handler which points to a function which sets the attribute of the new content value that the user would type in. And then in the save.js file, it's kind of a watered down version of that, and we just used a rich text component with the .content, and then the save function on the block props, which is what adds that watered down version again of the block props, instead of having all of those messy classes and stuff that WordPress puts in on the editor. So yeah, that's where we left off. So I guess the next thing would be to start adding in our attributes for the inspector controls for our color settings that we're going to add to the block.
Yeah, absolutely. Where do you want to start first? Background or text color?
I think we should start with the text color because I think that makes the most sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, take it away.
Cool. So here we are. We've got the content. So obviously we're inside an object at the moment, inside the attributes object. So I'm just going to add a comma, and we're going to add, what should we call this? Text color.
Yeah.
Be super explicit. And we'll just add a type. And again, what we're going to do in a minute, we're going to use a color picker component, and that's going to return a color code, a color hex code, as a string. So we'll put the type as string for this attribute as well. And for now, I think we're going to leave it as that. Again, as we touched on last week, you can get very clever in terms of kind of assigning it to specific attributes, and you can specify the markup or the class or the ID of the attribute that you want to target and where you want this attribute to be pulled in from. Just to keep it simple for now, I think we're just going to leave it there. We've defined an attribute and it's going to be type string. So yeah.
Cool. That makes sense. Okay, so that's all we need for now then, because we've got our attribute set up. So now we can head over to the edit.js file where the magic's going to happen. And I think the first thing we need to do is import the inspector controls component.
Yeah, go for it.
So let's do that. Inspector controls. So that's going to give us the component responsible for containing our settings. So now we've got that, I guess the next thing to do is destructure our attribute from attributes.
Yep.
Would you say so, yeah? Makes
Yeah.
sense. Might as well do that and get it out of the
Might
way.
as well get that done.
Text
Easy
color.
to forget that.
So now we've got that, and we can use that in our file now without having to go into attributes dot text color.
Yeah.
So now we've got that, we need to create a fragment so that we can have multiple components in our return statement.
Yeah.
So we just open it up like that, and then we can close it. Cool. So now we don't have to comma separate things in an array or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's nice and easy.
It's cool. I like using the fragments. They're really handy.
So now we can open up our inspector controls, which is gonna close down there like that.
Yeah.
Cool. So just to demonstrate this working, we can actually just type something in there, can't we? Just to see that in our website. We will have to do npm start before we jump over there because easily forgotten.
Well remembered.
That one gets us all the time.
Yeah.
So let's just say, I don't know, this is a setting. Just going to save that, but then I'm going to open up a new terminal in VS Code. You could do it in PowerShell or whatever you like. I think I've got one open. Let me just close one of them. That's it. So now let's run npm start. That's going to run. We should get live reload. That's looking good.
Awesome.
Perfect. All right. So that should all be fine. So if we now head over to the website again and give it a refresh. Just close, just cross that off. We click on that. This looks like it's the wrong block. That's the default paragraph block. Let's get rid of that. We want to put in our custom paragraph block that we created. So now you can see we've got, this is a setting in the place where our inspector controls is, and this is where all of our settings like colors and stuff can go. It's just to demonstrate really that you can see it working, and now we know everything's set up and we can continue.
Happy days. Yeah, it's good.
Okay, so what should we do next?
So should we start with the panels? What do you want to do first? Do you want to go through documentation on the panels, or did you want to import the packages, the components from the package?
Should we have a quick look at the documentation for that?
Yeah, panels are an interesting one because for this inspector controls part of the settings sidebar, you've kind of got multiple components that you can import from the components package. So you've got the overall panel, and then you've got things like panel heading that you can import. You've got the panel body, which is actually the toggle, the accordion sort of toggle, open and close that you get. And then you've got something called a panel row as well, which is designed to kind of separate out different parts of the panel body, I guess. So yeah, there's quite a few different components to it, and I guess what we wanted to show you is obviously there is some good documentation around this again, and we'll put the link to this in the description below. But also, as we follow along and kind of explore this together, we'll see that maybe we don't need to use all of these panel sections at the same time to get the look that we're looking for. So James, if you go to that code snippet, I think it's just below where you are actually. There we go. So you can see here in the example that it gives you, it's actually importing pretty much all of them apart from the panel heading. component. And it's giving you an example of how it'd be set up. So obviously your panel wraps everything, then you've got your panel body, and then you've got your panel row. So that's how we're going to set things up for now. And we'll explain along the way, maybe kind of this isn't perfect for the kind of look and the functionality that you're looking for. And we'll show you how we tend to do things instead.
Yeah, let's jump over and do that then. So we might as well just copy this line because
Yeah, it gets us started, to be fair.
gets us started. We're just importing the components, so we can paste that just underneath our other import. So now we can use panel, panel body, and panel row. So inside of our inspector controls then, we would naturally start with the panel component. And the remind me, Phil, what is the
it has
attribute for that?
Header props, which is a string. Yeah.
Okay. So that was, what's it? My panel or something. Could be called anything.
Yeah. Do you want to go with color settings or something, which we're doing?
Yeah, let's do color setting.
Something like that seems to make sense.
Yeah. And then inside of that, we could have a panel body.
Yeah.
And again, that has a...
I think that's a title prop rather than a header prop. Title.
Cool. So again, we can just use color settings and we'll show you then what's going on and why you might not need some of these components. And then inside panel body, we can have a panel row. And the panel row, everything inside of it is set to flex direction row, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
And that can cause some issues, but we'll get into that in a sec. Cool. Okay, so there are 3 components. The panel row, what prop does that have?
Don't think it needs a
Doesn't
prop
have one?
necessarily.
Cool.
It has a couple. You can add a class name and you can add a ref to it, but yeah, you don't really
need to. Cool.
No.
So is that enough then to just look at the editor to see what it's doing?
Yeah. Can, why don't you put some text into the panel row or something? Just
cool.
You know, my panel.
This is
a panel row or something.
Lovely. Okay, so I'll just update that. Refresh the page. Okay, so if I click on that now, you can see we've got color settings here, which is the actual panel component header prop that we set there. So that's pulling in that. Then we've got panel body title, which is then pulling in on the actual toggle. So you could see how that isn't very useful to a user to see that twice. So you could argue you don't actually need the panel at all because the panel body is perfectly adequate. So anything I've missed there, Phil, to mention?
No, I think that sums up pretty well. I mean, we were discussing obviously. I don't think necessarily. I struggle to think of a scenario where you would need the wrapping panel with that header prop, certainly. I mean, I guess you could have the panel without the header props, but then you'd argue kind of what's the point really? The panel body is what seems to be doing all of the functionality that you want, and if you look at the core blocks and the inspector control settings on some of those core blocks, it seems that they are using primarily just the panel body on their ones.
Yeah.
So
the panel body, the main panel is completely optional. So in this case, we should probably just get rid of it because we don't need it. So let's code. is always better in my opinion.
Yeah.
Cool. So we can leave it there, I guess, for now. And we can now add in the attribute in the form of a component that we're going to find now. So we need some kind of
Yeah.
color picker component, I guess, to actually do something cool with.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so I think the best place to go for that is a really cool website called I think wpgb.com.
Yeah. I always get confused because it's all letters in that one. I always type in WGBB,
Yeah, it's confusing,
PBGB.
but fantastic
Yeah, really
website.
good.
So let's have a look. I've already started searching for color, so let's have a look at which color components we can use. Some like they're just native Gutenberg components, and we can use them. So why not? So there's a few here to choose from, which is quite cool in itself. The fact that you've got such a variety of components to choose from, which pretty much all do the same kind of thing, in slightly different ways. I think for our purpose, the color palette one would probably be the best choice because you can set some predefined colors, but you can also have the option to have a custom color, and that's quite nice.
Yeah, I think this is obviously we looked at the core paragraph block at the beginning of the video. I think this is the component that they use within that as
Mm,
well, and across a lot of the core blocks. So, thing I always think in terms of building custom blocks is kind of trying to create that user experience that's going to be familiar to WordPress users using some of the core blocks and kind
mm,
of making that barrier to entry using your custom block as low as possible, really. So I think it's a great choice, and yeah, we can see how they're doing it. So
yeah, let's
why
jump
not?
in to the color palette component here then. This is quite useful because it gives us examples of how to actually use it, and also where we can go to find more information on it. So if I click on the GitHub URL on the left, it will take us to the actual Gutenberg component documentation, and we can see things like all of the props that are available to use, which ones are required. In this case, it looks like the only required prop is the colors prop, so
Yeah,
that's good to know. Got some nice
probably the
examples.
value as well, I'm
Is
guessing.
the value one? It says no, which is weird.
Okay, that's weird. Interesting.
Yeah, you'd
On
think it.
on changes required below.
I would have thought they'd have put all the required ones at the beginning, but
Yeah,
that's not the case. Um,
it
so,
would make sense.
so
There are
watch
some
out for that.
components where they are at the top, but
Yeah,
I
so,
guess it's just hit and miss at the moment. It's a bit wild out there.
yeah. So don't let that one catch you out. Make sure you check all the required props. Okay, so we can use this. So we just need to import color palette first of all,
Mhm.
so we can use it. And if we have a look here, it's imported from the WordPress components package. So pretty sure we've got that already. Yeah, perfect. So we can actually just add that in.
Mhm. Yeah, one thing worth noting while James is doing that, with the color palette, on the documentation, you may have picked up there that it was using use state instead of attributes like we are today. Nothing wrong with doing that, but as we've mentioned in previous videos, the use state isn't persistent. So that if you're to refresh the page or save the page and come back to it at a later stage, it won't actually store that as an attribute for your component. So
Mm,
it will technically work while you're playing about and testing it, because it will update it using use state. But if you're building this for production and you actually want to obviously use an attribute, we recommend going down that route basically.
yeah, well
Just
worth
one worth
mentioning that.
noticing so you don't get
Yeah,
caught up with that.
definitely. Okay then. So now we know what we're using for our color attribute, how do we now actually use that component in our code? So Phil, do you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, sure. So where are we in the edit? Let's come here. So we'll go color. Hopefully I'm spelling this correctly.
Yeah, it looks good.
Cool. So I think color is equal to an array of objects. So let's kick us off with 3.
So this is specifying our own predefined colors as a prop, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So you can do this however you want. You could actually do this outside of the return statement, like the code example and the documentation shows you. You could create a variable colors as an array and build this out, and then just literally call that that variable inside of this component. But we'll just do it inline for now. It keeps it simple, and it's a bit easier for you guys to follow along as well, probably. So as per the documentation for this component, you're going to need, for each object, you're going to need 2 properties to be set, basically. So a name, so we can call this red, for example, and then the color. What's the other?
Should we have
called
a
color?
quick look? Let's have a quick look, because it's easily.
Yeah, I think it's
easily
color. There
forget
you
it.
go.
Color, perfect.
Cool. And that was F00, I believe, which is a string. Cool.
Yeah, if you were doing this yourself, you could literally just copy and paste from the documentation or from that WPGB website to make your lives easier.
Yeah.
But we like doing it the hard way. We don't really.
Color. And then it'll be 00F. I think that's right. If you go back to the documentation, I think they're the color codes that we went for.
Even if they're not, we'll get some funky
00F.
colors.
Yeah, there we go. Cool.
Make it interesting.
So we've got the color props now, which is great. So let's add our value, which will open up the parenthesis, and this is where we're going to use the attribute name text color that we destructured earlier at the very top. So we'll go with text color here, and then the on change equal. Now last time, as you know, up at the top we've got the function, the edit content handler up here, where we set the attributes, and we use like a handler function. Today we're going to show you something a little bit different. We're going to do some inline arrow function stuff. So I'm just going to call this val, and we'll explain this in a second, but you can call this whatever you want really. And then we're going to set attributes, which is a function, and within here we're going to open up an object and declare which attribute we're going to update. So let's update text color. Ooh. And we're going to set it to the value of val.
Nice.
So yeah, so as I said, basically we're just passing with the on change function. It's looking for obviously what change there has been. So when the user selects a color or chooses their own custom color, whatever the value of that color is. So for instance, if the user chose red, the value of that would be F00 hex code. And basically we're just passing this through as an arrow function to the set attributes function. Within that we're opening up an object, because if we go back to the block.json, attributes is an object. And within there you've got 2 attributes set up, so there's no way of WordPress knowing which attribute you want to try and set here. So in the edit.js file we're going to declare that it's the text color attribute we want set, and we're setting it to the value of val, the variable over here on the left hand side. And that should be everything that we need now for this color palette to work. We've got the 3 colors. By default, you're going to be able to select a custom color as well, as we looked at in the website earlier. We're setting the value to our attribute, which initially is just going to be empty. And then on change, whenever a user selects a value, we can then update our attribute with that value. So nothing too tricky going on here, but hopefully that explains it. And now if we head back over to WordPress, we should hopefully be able to see this actually working now.
Okay, let's refresh.
Obviously, it won't actually technically work in terms of updating the paragraph text. We're going to get to that in 2 seconds, but I just want to make sure the color palette is working first of all.
So it looks like we've got the option to add a custom color. I'm not seeing the predefined colors as of yet. So maybe we should just double check that code and make sure it's all correct.
Yeah. So it was
color.
Oh, I see what I've done. I think it's colors, not color.
Ah, that
the
would do
props, it. The props was colors.
That would
there you
do
go.
it.
It's always those simple little things, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's try that again.
It's like those missing semicolons.
There we go.
There we go.
Yeah, we can't actually, it doesn't, like Phil said, it doesn't actually change that yet, but it's working in the inspector controls panel, which is great. That's what we want so far. That's all we need.
Absolutely. Now to get this working, very, very simple. This shouldn't take too long at all. So what you can do, which is super handy, further down on the rich text component, obviously we're spreading in the use block props function here, which we discussed last time. What you can actually do is open up an object, and you can actually add attributes and hook into this to add attributes to it. So if we add style, open up an object again, and we're going to set color to the value of text color. So now the use block props will put an inline style, set a color inline style, and set that equal to text color. And this should now just work. That should be all that you need. We've hooked into it. And now whenever text color updates, that inline style should also update.
Cool. Well, let's have another look.
So that was super easy to hook up. Hopefully this works.
Hey.
There you go.
Lovely.
We've got a working, and that's using the custom color picker, obviously, not just the 3 colors we had defined initially in our colors prop. That's just really helpful. The colors prop is just great for keeping people on brand with your brand colors. If you wanted to, and you can actually disable the custom color picker as well. So if you only wanted people to be able to pick from your brand colors, you can obviously define your colors in that array and then turn off the custom color picker, and they can only ever pick what colors you want them to, which is great from a designer's point of view. So yeah, really handy.
Yeah, really handy. All right, so now we've got that working. We could add another color for the background, just to show you how you add multiple attributes and multiple settings. So should we do that, or should we do the save function first?
Let's do the other attribute first, and then we'll do the save function at the very end and show it all working on the front end as well, maybe.
Sweet. All right, so we need another attribute for our background color. So let's call that, I'm just gonna copy that because I'm lazy. So we just need background color. Let's get rid of that. Why is it orange? Where's the error? There's no
There
comma.
we go.
Here we go. So that's all we need again. We just keep it as type string. We don't need anything
Yeah,
else. Just
yeah, exactly. Now, obviously, if you did want some sort of default background color, default text color, you could use the default argument and set it to a specific string value.
mm,
Um, but obviously, in this case, as I said, we'll just keep it simple. But yeah, just a heads up, if you ever wanted like a default color value or something, that's all doable as well. So yeah.
cool. So assuming we're going to be using the same component, we don't need to import anything else because we can just use the color palette that we've already imported.
Hmm.
So I guess all we need now is to just copy really. I guess we could put it in, we could keep the panel body
Yeah.
and create a new panel row. That would make sense to me.
Yeah, definitely. I think that works for what we're.
Yeah. So we've got two panel rows. So what we're gonna call, so we need to specify which color palette is for which thing. So we're probably going to need some form of title above each one. So should we just put a paragraph in
Yeah,
with the top one, text color?
exactly.
I'll use American spelling. And then we're going to need another one for...
Now, if you're wondering why James is adding a paragraph tag here and not using some sort of props on panel row, it's because panel row only has two props, which is a class name and a refs. So there is no props for title on panel row. So this is really the only way within a panel row you can add a title, as far as I'm aware. If you know of another way, feel free to comment below. But yeah, it seems to be the only way that I can see to add this in.
Yeah, it's a bit annoying, but hey ho.
Yeah,
So I'll just change where it says text color, the background color. So now that's done. So that's set up correctly. We haven't
well remembered.
yeah, destructured background color from
Yeah.
attributes.
And again, when you're building your own blocks out from the start, obviously this is why we said in the last video, ideally you would plan ahead, think about all the attributes that you're going to want for your component before you start building in an ideal world. And then you would only do all of this destructuring once. But where we're showing you step by step and we want to make it simple for you guys to follow along as possible, obviously there's a bit more back and forth. But yeah, hopefully it should just be a one-off sort of thing for you guys.
And then the last thing to do is just to add the background. No, that's not right. That's better. Background color. And it's just literally a copy of that, isn't it? Because with when you're adding CSS into these to the, what is it called, the prop, you use camel casing instead of any dashes in between like you would with CSS. You would have dash, and then that's just the name of our attribute, so that's why they're the same, but they're actually different things. So I think that's all we need then in the edit.js.
Yeah, I think that's everything. Let's check out what that looks like now.
Yeah, I imagine it might look a bit odd with our panel row issue.
Yeah.
Let's have a look. Yes.
Yes. Looking a little bit mad over there now.
Yeah. So I think I mentioned this earlier that with panel row it uses all the items within a panel row are displayed flex, but with flex direction row, so everything gets put next to each other, which causes a bit of an issue. So on reflection, we could actually say that we don't need panel row at all because it's causing us problems. It's not really doing anything for us that we need, so let's just get rid of it. Anything to add to that, Phil?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's
Does that make sense?
yeah, kind of again, if you know why the panel row is important, or if it is important, or if we should be using it, do let us know, because again, we're kind of learning with you guys. But as far as I can tell, from using quite a lot of these panels, I can't see any reason for the panel or the panel row personally myself, because as we're discovering today, you will want some sort of labels for your fields to indicate to users what they're updating. And you just can't really seem to do that without a lot of CSS. So kind of what's the point really?
Yeah, I think it works, so why
Yeah.
have it? I'm just going to put in just a break tag in there just to give it a little bit of spacing. And if I head back over, refresh the page, it should now look a little bit nicer. Perfect.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great.
So I think it should just work, shouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect.
Look at that, it's great. So we've got a working color picker. We've got the background color, we've got the text color. It's looking good.
Looking awesome. So this isn't going to work yet on the front end, is it? So
No, we'll need
I've
to
viewed the front end, it's not going to work. So in order to get that working, we need to actually edit our save.js file, so it actually saves all of that stuff for the front end. So what do we need to do, Phil, for that?
Well, let's start by destructuring our attributes at the very top. We don't need to import anything on the front end. So it'll be text color and background color. So the beauty is, as we always say with the save.js file, is it's going to be a lot leaner than your edit file. If you look at the edit file, it's quite beefy now already. You know, we've imported a few different components from a couple of different packages. We've got the inspector controls going on. We've got fragment, you know, to cover ourselves with these. We've got color palettes, panel bodies, all sorts going on here. On the save.js file, it will be a much more leaner, watered down version, because we're literally just saving the markup essentially. We're not worried about the user experience in the editor. So all we have to do now to get this working is pretty much replicate what we've got in the use block props by hooking in with our styles. And we can do that on the .save function in the save.js file. So we can literally take that, copy that, paste it into the save function here. And we're literally going to create those inline styles now for our paragraph text on the front end, which is awesome.
Yeah, because all we've done really is, it looks like we've done lots of work, but really all we're actually doing is saving two inline style elements for color and background color. So that's the only thing that needs to get taken over to the front end by using the attributes that's been saved on the back end. So we're literally just spitting out style, color and background color. That's literally all that's happening on the front end.
Yeah, we can look at the markup on the front end, because it'll be quite interesting, because obviously we've seen both before, to be honest, but kind of when you get those inline styles, it's much cleaner. Obviously on the back end, that block as you see it at the moment has got mad markup in the editor, because it's got all of the data attributes that WordPress needs to keep track of it all.
Yeah, I'm struggling.
On the front end, it will literally just be.
While you're talking, I'm struggling to actually get this working. For some reason, it's not
It's
showing up.
probably because as it compiled with the npm.
I mean, it should have.
It has. You probably just need to. You might need to refresh. Have you refreshed in the editor? Because it'll probably come up with the HTML error and try and recover your block. Now we've saved the save.js file.
You're right.
There we go. One of the annoying quirks of developing custom blocks for Gutenberg, every time you change the save.js file, it will scream at you. But most times you can just attempt block recovery and it will actually just sort it out.
Cool. Well, you saved me there, because that could have taken me a while to debug.
There you go. And now if we look at the inspect the markup on that, it's going to be super clean compared to the
Yeah,
edit.
I think we might be slightly in the way of this. Maybe I can can't actually see it. My camera's in the way. Maybe if I put it to the right.
Yeah, that's better. Cool. So yeah, hopefully now you guys can see that. So we've literally got the class name of the block, which is WP block create block paragraph, which is our title. And then we've got the inline style of the color and the background color. And that's it.
Yeah, that's all that save function is doing, just spitting that inline style out.
Exactly.
We can even take it a step further, can't we, and add like our own custom classes.
Yeah. Do you want to? Why not? Let's show that as well.
So we do that in. Do we do that in the save.js or the edit?
You can do it in both. Do it on the front end because that's where we'd probably want to apply the classes.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's do it in this file.
Okay, so after this, I believe we can create a new. Is it a prop? I always get confused. Is it a class name prop?
Yeah, class name property. It's just an object. So yeah, class name property in the object, and then just
we just put anything in with a string. Is that what we do?
Yeah, it could literally even
don't
be
even
a string.
need that,
Doesn't even need those.
No, we don't need that. So let's just put, I don't know, color block.
You probably need to go back to the editor again and resave it because it will.
Oh, so you have to even resave it if it's on the save.js.
Yeah, because it will scream at you again saying the block has changed. You've not saved the block since.
Interesting. All these little things, these little gotchas, they're really handy to know.
No, it's still not there.
Okay, so if it's not there.
Oh wait, it was there. Color block. Is that what you've just added? There. Yeah, there you go. Missed it straight in front of me.
Literally right in front of us. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's pretty much it for this video, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully you found it useful, guys, because as you're starting to see now, when you're building custom blocks, kind of you've really got to consider everything for your users. It's very different from like ACF block development where you get a lot out of the box, you get all the ACF fields that you can choose from. Even a simple thing like updating the text color or adding a background color, you've got to consider all of these different options. And as we looked at, there's about 4 or 5 different color pickers alone to choose from. So considering the user interface for your users, these are all really important skills to have when starting to dive into custom development. And these are decisions that you as a developer get to make along the way. So I would say definitely go away and explore some documentation. Definitely check out the wpgb.com website as well, and just get used to diving in and testing out some of these components, because I find personally that's the best way to learn, and just see what they look like, see what they're like to interact with, just knock up a test block and just start playing about, really.
Yeah, there's absolutely tons you can do with the native components that have already been made for you. So yeah, use them, have fun with them, extend them, and hopefully this video has given you a nice introduction into what is possible with the inspector controls panel. So have a practice, and in the next video I guess we'll be just taking it a step further, maybe adding some more settings, but yeah, good things to come. So yeah, make sure you're subscribing, liking and sharing, and we'll see you in episode 7, I believe it is. So yeah, take care, and we'll see you next time.
Have a good one, guys. Thanks for joining us.